Alright guys, plywood is cut out. It's looking pretty freaking sweet. So I just threw them in here. I don't know if you could tell in the last video when I was done cutting them out, I kind of just went around the perimeter to break off any loose strands that got kicked up from cutting it out with the saw. And then I also beveled the outside that would made up with the hole here. So there's a couple air gaps, but again, it doesn't matter because I'm going to fill it in with peanut butter anyway. So now what I'm doing is I went through and took my square and just made sure everything kind of was nice and square. One could use a little bit more adjustment. That one's pretty close as well, but could use a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is I have them clamped up back here where they're going to bolt in. They're not like super tight, but close. Same on this side. And I'm going to take my tape measure. I'm going to take a measurement back here. I'm going to take a minute here to explain something. So, since I'm starting this video blog now, I can't really stress it enough, but since you guys didn't get to see this, when I started tearing this boat apart, I was pretty religious about taking measurements where I could to make sure. I mean, it's like anything. It's a lot of little steps to restore a boat. I mean, it sounds like a daunting task, but I figured if I took a lot of measurements, documented it, lots of pictures, Jesus, it might help. So this was over a year ago that I did that, and it's just now starting to come back in handy. So I didn't even think about it. I was sitting up here looking at this bow seating that I'm trying to put in here, and I'm like taking measurements in the back here and like making sure it's even in the front, and everything's just kind of flopping around in the breeze. I had this stuff kind of propped up and it's somewhat where I want it, but kind of just shooting in the dark here. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute, a year ago you documented all this stuff. So I went inside, grabbed my folder with all the pictures and drawings I made, and sure enough, I have the dimension across from each side of the inner dimension of those bow seats. So instead of messing around trying to take measurements, make sure everything's plumb and level and everything, all I had to do was go in and look at my drawings. So I mean, that's right there, that saved me, I'm guessing, a half an hour of messing around. But not only time, in addition to that, now I know the dimensions I'm cutting are going to match the way it was. And that might not be that critical depending on your boat, but I'm planning on reusing the bow seat cushions and everything kind of the way it was in the front, so I need it to be as close as I can get it to where it was. So that's just, I guess I just wanted to emphasize how important that can be in the beginning. Is just, it might seem like overkill, might seem like a waste of time, but just document as much as you can, because if you're like me and it's going on over a year that you're working on this thing, you're going to forget, especially in the motor. Whoop. Hey, there we go. Especially in the motor area. I mean, there's so many plugs and wires and connections back there. Just take pictures. Just do it. Whew. I thought I had those templates last night pretty close, but focus is all the way back. They definitely needed some work. I probably got in and out of the boat like at least 25-30 times, fitting each one of these as close as I could get it. Now I have it to where the 20-inch wide separator in the front fits perfect. So I think the next step is going to be scribing those corners up there to try and get that front separator down the whole way. Once that's done, I think what I'm gonna do is, I don't know if you guys know what pocket holes are. I'm planning on drilling maybe like one there, one there, one there, and one there. That's what this is. So it's basically like an angled screw that'll poke out here on the sides. They come in really convenient for stuff like this. So my plan is those are going to go into those pieces that run up there into the bow. So I'm actually just going to use them as a temporary clamp until the peanut butter sets up, and then these will get tabbed in anyway. So I'm going to put them in and then remove them, and then I'll fill these holes with peanut butter to seal up those holes when I'm done. They're nice, but the only downside is you need a jig to make them. This is a cheap one I got at like Harbor Freight. So it comes with this plate, so you clamp a piece of wood in there and basically drills down at that angle. So your piece of wood would go vertically like this into the jig, and then you drill into that angle. And then back here, so that piece is 20 inches wide. And back here I'll put a piece of wood that's 20 inches across here, and maybe another one up a little higher, and that way that'll ensure that these things are nice and kind of plumb, vertical, whatever. These pieces that I put back here are just going to be temporary. That'll screw in and then fill the holes after it's set up, but that one up there will be part of the boat, so that'll be kind of the front divider. Alright, so just to recap what's going on here. The two side pieces I have screwed in place. I guess I don't need this clamp anymore. So what I did is I cut two spacers that are exactly the same length as the, where's my finger? There it is. As the front bulkhead up there. So that'll keep the spacing even the whole way up. At 20 inches, which is arbitrary, just depends on what your boat is. Hopefully you took some measurements like I did and forget about them and then find them later. So I did have to make a couple of tweaks that I forgot about since the last video where I was cutting these out. I did show you, I think, that these were too high, so I had to bring this down about, I went down almost an inch just to leave some clearance between the plywood and the fiberglass. I originally had it coming out flush here the whole way up to the front, but then I realized since I'm under the wood up here, back here, the wood needs to be on top as well, so that means the wood would have been up here, which is no good. I wanted it to be underneath this fiberglass, which is how this is over here. So in order to keep everything kind of in the same plane, I had to taper this down to this spot there. And once I did that, I also realized that this was too high, so I had to trim this down a little as well. So that's where I'm at. Everything's spaced out the way I want it. I'm gonna go back through real quick and just kind of double check everything's nice and flush, plumb, square, all that good stuff. And then I'm going to screw in those pocket holes up there, pocket hole screws. Once that is done, it's gonna be time to mix up some peanut butter, get some tabbing cut out, and be off to the races. So by now you guys probably already know the drill, but can't emphasize enough that fiberglass is, it's kind of like anything, like painting or anything like that. It's all about preparation. So one thing that makes fiberglassing extremely difficult is not being ready to fiberglass. So if that doesn't make sense, you want to have everything cut out, all your tabbing, everything you're going to be laying. If you can do it all in one shot, it's going to be so much easier. So for instance, for this layup, I'm planning on doing the peanut butter in all the corners to give me a nice radius. And I'm going to let that set up just a little bit, but I'm not going to let it get hard. And then I'm going to come back and put all the 1708 tabbing down. And what that does is it allows the peanut butter to still kind of be pliable enough and conform enough to where when I establish that radius with the roller with the 1708, it'll kind of bed into the peanut butter still. So you won't get any air pockets. And one other kind of tip I want to throw in here is I never really saw anybody else on iBoats or anything do this, and it made a lot of sense to me. It's been pretty convenient. I know it costs a little bit more up front, but I don't think it's substantial. I've been buying the 1708 Biax tape. I think this is 6-inch wide tape. So it's basically 1708, but it just comes in a 6-inch wide roll, and it's like, I think I buy like a 25-yard long roll or something like that. It's really not any, or at least it's not that much more expensive, and it saves you from having to cut a bunch of really long strips, which I don't really have a nice big work table. I'm working outside, so having that step eliminated is really convenient. So I basically just roll it out and cut it to length. And 6-inch wide tabbing is going to be perfectly fine for this. Now when I did the deck, I used the tape for the first layer of tabbing, and then I did have to use 1708 and cut it wider at 12 inches to get the overlap for that second layer of tabbing. But these seat boxes are only going to need one layer. They're already covered with CSM, so they're waterproof. This is basically just to attach it structurally to the hull, and then it'll be good. So yeah, just prep. Come in, clean everything with acetone, vacuum up any dust or debris. And just, when you're ready to go, just make sure you don't have any distractions and just go for it. It's not that hard. So let me do what I just said, get everything ready to go, and let's get at this. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this right now, because I think pretty soon I'm going to be called in for dinner and then kid duty for the rest of the night, but maybe once they go to bed I'll come out here and do Mad Props After Dark. See you guys then. Everybody. So the next thing I'm going to do here is work on the templates for the top of the front bow seat area. The template I'm going to do is a little bit different than what you saw me do for the vertical pieces. It's starting to rain. Gotta hurry up here and get the boat covered up. Let me show you real quick what I'm going to do. So I have this piece of foam here. So I'm doing this kind of backwards. What I did was mark out every 2 inches and made a horizontal line across my foam piece. Ignore this is old. And then what I'm going to do is tape my tape measure. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go, I also marked every 2 inches along this vertical piece. I'm going to go and measure horizontally and just kind of work my way up. And then I'll end up with kind of a connect the dot thing. I'll transfer those lines over to the foam here. and get it cut. And then up here, this will just be a pretty simple piece. I'll do half of this and attach it to this piece of foam. I know it sounds confusing, but it'll make sense. I was hoping to get this done, but it looks like the weather's not going to cooperate, so I'll get her covered up, and once it stops, I'll come back out here and see if we can get this squared away. Then I'll show you what it looks like, so it makes more sense. See you soon. Alright guys, I gotta stop saying that. Alright guys, get out of my system. So, you notice I'm not wearing the same clothes as the last clip. So it started raining on me, didn't stop. So it's a new day, but I feel good. I'm gonna be out here for a while tonight. Probably get a good 4 or 5 hours in on this thing. So just to show you guys what I did. So basically did what I said in the video yesterday. I measured out all those points, traced them on, marked that this is the port side. But what I did was so I went up each of these increments, but I stopped at this one. Sorry, you can't see it. I stopped at this one because I'm going to jog the plywood into the center line here. And what I did was I actually took a string and made a center mark on this vertical divider, and also a center mark up there at the front of the boat. I just kind of eyeballed that. I think it's going to be pretty close. So I ran a string line, and now I'm going to take the rest of my measurements from the center line out to the edge and continue my way up all the way to the front. And then what I'm going to do is I'll end up with 2 pieces of plywood. Then there will be a port side and a starboard side. I'll probably have to measure them both individually because I don't know that what's left of this plywood here is going to be the same on both sides. So I may end up with 2 templates, which is fine. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. Sorry, get used to this. I don't have my old camera or phone holder anymore now that I got this new phone. So that's what I have to deal with for now. So let me get this finished up, and I'll show you what it looks like. See how it fits. I'll cut it out, and we'll see how close we were, and go from there. All right, be right back. All right, here it is. Fits pretty good. I'm happy with how it turned out. This is I had to trim one little spot right in here. It was a little tight, but so you can see there's a gap there. I actually did that on purpose. I wanted to leave a little bit of room in between to put some peanut butter. I didn't want this to butt up against each other, so I wanted to do plastic. So that'll help seal up the sand and also give me a way to kind of just take up some irregularities. The only spot that didn't turn out that great was back here, is a little bit off, but I can just, this is all going to get covered with 1708 biax tape to kind of tab it in anyway, so it's all going to get covered up, so no problems there. So I'm actually thinking I'm going to come underneath here. You can see, and put some sort of a bulkhead at the back of that to just help support it. I think that'll work. So template looks good though. I'm happy with it. I'm gonna get the other side done. I'm gonna actually wait to cut out the holes for the bow storage until after the wood's actually in. I think it's gonna be easier that way. I'll glass everything and then come back and cut it out with a jigsaw. Then reseal the edges before I gel coat. So I'm gonna get this other side done, and then we'll transfer it over to wood and cut it out and get these things glued in. Moving along, wood's cut out. Looks really good. Next step is going to be, I'm going to coat the underside of these with resin and CSM. I'm going to leave the top side uncoated for now because I want to take a round over bit my router and round over these edges here so it makes wrapping the glass around easier and just gives it a nicer transition. Also, I want to then put some thin pieces of plywood under here, and maybe, I don't need it up there, I don't think. So here and here, and then on this side, same thing here and back here. So I'll screw that in from underneath, and then when I screw this into it, so it'll just be sticking out like this. And I'll use it as kind of a shelf to support these for when I glass them in. Then once I get the peanut butter in here, it'll be solid then, and I'll put the 1708 tape on that seam, so it'll be good. Also 1708 down here and here, basically the whole way around. I'm essentially just tabbing it in like a pair of stringers or whatever. So yeah, coming along. All right, the tops for the front seat boxes are now covered in resin and a layer of CSM. I'll show you down here. There you go. So now that they're waterproofed I just did the underside for now. Now that they're waterproofed, once that kicks off, I'll take my angle grinder and a flat disc and kind of grind off those furry, I call them furry edges, where the glass just kind of hangs out over the side. I'm going to then mix up some peanut butter, bed them down into the boxes with the little shelves that I talked about under the plywood on the sides, just to hold it up. Once that peanut butter kicks off, then it'll be rigid enough that those shelves aren't really needed. I'll probably remove them. And then I'm going to kind of dish out, I don't know if you can see, so I'm going to kind of dish out where the two pieces of wood meet, so it'll be kind of like a concave area. Kind of like drywall. When you get the factory edges, they're kind of beveled down, so when you tape and mud them, you end up with like a flat surface instead of a hump where the seam is. Sorry. Busy road. Hi. So yeah, I'm gonna bevel or kind of hollow it out there, and then when I fill it with the tabbing, it'll come up closer to level again, so I don't have to worry about a big hump at the seam. And then I will probably start working on fairing, actually. Getting the front kind of walk area down in there and make up some fairing compound and start smoothing it out. I basically am just trying to hide kind of the tabbing. That's the one thing that it always kind of bothered me about when you see some boats where they just put the gel coat down right over the floor raw. It's just, you don't do non-skid especially, then when you look at it in the sunlight you just see a bunch of humps and stuff where the tabbing is. I know, it shouldn't bother me, but it does. So yeah, I'm going to start fairing it, sanding it smooth, and then the front will probably be ready for gel coat. I may actually gel coat just the front half, just to get it done with inside the boxes and once the front's faired out. And then I'll kind of start working my way back. I do want to get these engine mounts made soon. I've been putting it off and putting it off. I'm not sure why, but actually in my shed, I was going through some of my old stuff. I actually came across this thing, which is actually the old engine mount. I didn't realize I saved it. So you can see it's the wood underneath. It's actually still relatively solid. I was surprised. It's really freaking heavy though, so I know it's solid wood. It looks like they used plywood here, but this piece here is solid, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm probably just going to end up using like 2x material. Maybe if I'm really feeling good about it, I might get something a little bit more waterproof. Not composite stuff, but maybe like a white oak or something like that. That's kind of the game plan. This is probably going to be the last clip in this series. It's getting kind of ridiculously long, so next time you see the boat, it should have the tops of the seat boxes installed, tabbed, maybe even the holes cut out. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But thanks for sticking around, guys. Appreciate you guys checking out these videos. I'm not sure how many of you are just kind of coming over from my boats or who's actually looking for this stuff, but it's cool to see the view counts going up. I know they're still like 20-30 views, which is like pretty sad, but I'm just glad people are watching it, and hopefully that means they're getting some useful information out of this. So again, like I said in the last video, feel free to like and subscribe if you're not already, and also leave some comments if there's anything you want to see. I do plan on doing a pretty comprehensive video series on the kind of putting the bellows and all that kind of stuff back on. There's a ton of videos on YouTube of people doing bellows installs and the water hose and shift cable and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not gonna lie, every single one I've seen is like either from far away you're just watching a guy do it over his shoulder and you can't really see anything, or the lighting's horrible. So I'm gonna try and get as good a maybe, I don't know, maybe once I start doing it I'm gonna realize, well, there's actually really no good way to video this. So I really want to get a good series on that though, with lots of up close footage with lots of lights so you can see exactly what's going on. So that's the plan. Again, if you guys have any other good comments, let me know. Yeah, I guess that's it for this video. Catch you guys next time. Later.